All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Jenna Wood, and I am a registered dietitian here with the Giant Company. Again, welcome to 2026 and our refresh on our classes. If you are a returning customer, of course, welcome back. I'm so glad you're back after our little holiday hiatus. And if you are a new customer this year, a great welcome to you as well. I hope you really enjoy our classes. I know I do, and I enjoy making them. So, for today, so I know we had meal solutions yesterday. Today we are kind of changing it up a little. Tuesdays used to be our produce spotlight, which we're still going to, spotlight something fresh. So that is our new concept for Tuesdays. We're doing fresh finds. And in January, we're talking about things you can sip. I just love coffee. If you have attended our coffee chats and other classes, when I was in college, I worked at a coffee roaster for about 3 years, and I love everything about coffee. So that was what I picked for my SIPS class. But we're going to dive in. You're going to learn more than you ever wanted to about coffee today. But I do actually have a poll. I know, I did a poll today. I did too. I am just going to do both as we get started. So the first one being, do you have a favorite coffee? Some people already said they don't. So, do you like hot? Do you like iced, cold brew, which are different? And I'm going to talk about the difference. Or you don't like coffee, and that's totally okay. But I'll give it a couple seconds. Again, I love coffee. It does not matter if it is cold, hot, cold brew, instant, French press. Like, I like all of the ways. All of the ways. All righty. I am going to end our poll. I still see a couple more coming in, but I'm going to end our poll. So the majority, I'm actually kind of shocked. The majority of our customers here on the class today prefer hot, which is definitely the standard, what most people drink as their first morning cup. A lot of people like iced, not as many cold brew, but you may realize you're drinking cold brew. And about 25% don't like coffee, which I actually find actually that makes sense. But that goes into our next question. A true or false? Over 50% of Americans have a cup of coffee daily. True or false? What do we think? I know I do. Or I would say I have something that is caffeine every day. Maybe not coffee every single day, but most days. Alrighty, I'll give it one more second. Perfect. So most of you are on the money. So it is true that over 50%, and the percentage is actually much higher, but we will get to that on another slide. But yes, most Americans, we love coffee here, but we're not the only country that loves coffee too. Well, let's dive in. So let's learn a little bit about coffee. So coffee beans are actually the seed so you've seen like green coffee beans, they're seeds that grow inside of a coffee cherry, which are little, cherry beans, which grow on coffee trees or bushes. There's a couple different shrubs that kind of produce coffee, which are a specific type of plant. They're thought to be native to Ethiopia, in a particular region that kind of bears a similar name to what we have coffee today. But coffee can grow in many, many regions. 66% of consumers, American consumers, have at least one cup of coffee every single day. So a good number of us are definitely, which kind of goes back to the percentage we sort of showed of our customers and how many of you have a cup of coffee every day or not. But what about nutrition? So again, for those of you new, I am a dietitian. We want to talk about nutrition and kind of the health effects when it comes to coffee. Now, this is a black cup of coffee, which many people are not doing, although a lot of people do just drink a cup of black coffee. This is the nutrition for that. Very low calories. So it ranges anywhere from like 2 to 5 calories per cup. And so this is very clear, 8 ounces. Many of us drink much more than that at a sitting. It does have a very tiny bit of sodium because sodium is found in the earth. There are beans that grow in there, so they have a tiny bit. There's no fiber, no salt, no sugar, and zero point 0.3 grams of protein, which is nothing, but there is a teeny bit there. Of course, what most of us think about with coffee is the caffeine that's in there. And truly, the caffeine amount varies for so many reasons, from the type of grind to the beans themselves. Of course, if it's decaf or not, the brewing method, of course, the size of the drink you have. So lots of things can affect the caffeine level. but all coffee is going to have some caffeine. Even decaf has a teeny, teeny bit. Small amounts of certain vitamins, things like riboflavin, magnesium, potassium, so different vitamins, minerals there. But again, you wouldn't be drinking coffee to get these, they just happen to be in there. But one of the reasons that we think of coffee as being so nutritious or good for us are some of these plant compounds, the different types of polyphenols that we find within coffee. So these antioxidants and other things that we think a lot with tea, which we'll talk about tea later this month with Joni, but coffee certainly has these compounds too. When it comes to health, though, so these are some of the positives, and this is just on a population basis, what some, longitudinal, so really long-term studies have found that people who drink coffee they're less likely to develop certain things. It's not, to say just because you drink coffee, you won't develop these things, but the correlation is there. So regular coffee consumers are less likely to die from certain leading causes of death in women, including heart disease, stroke, diabetes, and kidney disease. They're less likely to develop type 2 diabetes. Now, of course, this is the coffee itself. This is not necessarily if you're drinking a super sugary beverage. Not to say that, every type of coffee is the same, but the actual compounds found there. People who regularly consume coffee are less likely to develop Parkinson's disease. And if they do have Parkinson's, they have more control over their certain movements that they might have. And there's a lower risk of dementia in women. So some studies found more positive effects in women versus men. Both regular and decaf coffee seem to have a protective effect on the liver, which is very good, long-term health, and improved liver enzymes. Some research shows that people who drink coffee, whether it's decaf or regular, were 26% less likely to develop colorectal cancer, which has been on the rise. And there is a reduced risk of gallstones as well. There's a million other things, but these are some of the highlights that I found while making the slides today. Again, just because you drink coffee doesn't necessarily mean you can't develop any of these because our lives and our diets and our exercise and everything else also play a factor. But just something, that they have found in coffee drinkers, which many of us are. How much is okay though? What is good for health? What might not be so good for health? Let's start with excessive intake. So you can, of course, drink too much coffee. So excessive caffeine intake, which can come from coffee or other caffeinated beverages or foods, can cause a lot of issues, whether it's an increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, anxiety, difficulty sleeping, and digestive issues. So, there's a happy medium with everything. Moderate consumption, so all the health benefits I just mentioned on the last slide, but why do most people drink coffee? It helps you be more alert, have a little bit more energy, and it does, in the short term, help people concentrate better. So those are definitely positives as well. What's the recommendation? About 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day maximum, which would be around 400 milligrams of caffeine. So if you're looking at the caffeine quantity, which not all packages of caffeinated things will tell you how much is in there, but 400 milligrams for a healthy adult. Pregnancy is a little bit different. There's different recommendations. Some people still absolutely, still drink this much, but certainly I believe it's 200 during pregnancy because caffeine is okay. It's safe in a smaller quantity. Now, the problem is we have an average of how much caffeine might be in a cup of coffee. It's about 95 milligrams, but again, that's an 8-ounce cup, and that's just a standard brewing method. There's also espresso and other types of brewing methods. So just being cautious of how many cups of different caffeinated beverages you're having. And of course, we're all unique people, and our tolerance and our responses to caffeine vary greatly. So certainly you could be tapped out at 100 milligrams and that's too much for you, or not at all. And certainly, yeah, there are some people who can tolerate higher levels, but it's very likely they're having some sort of, related issue, especially if they're drinking that caffeine later in the day. The recommendation is to try to keep it early in the day because the half-life, which is, how long it kind of takes to be metabolized, is quite long. So if you're drinking coffee or caffeinated beverages into the afternoon, which I'm going to cut off after this class, It can still affect your sleep, even if we're not associating it with sleep. So, just some things to consider. Now, I'm not going to go into each of these, but just something to think about how unique and how diverse the field of coffee is. There's a lot of things that can make a cup of coffee vary. So the different types of beans, where they were grown, what type of bean, because there are a couple different types of beans out there. So that can play a factor. How it's roasted. So of course you can have dark roasts, lighter roasts, medium roasts. Some people were doing the green coffee, which isn't roasted at all. And I will throw in, because I didn't put it anywhere else in the slides, most people think that dark roast, oh, it like has that kind of body to it. It must be more caffeinated. Dark roasts typically have less caffeine because the more you roast them, you're kind of, burning off some of that caffeine. So medium and lighter roasts actually have more caffeine. The amount of the grind. So if you are brewing your cup with more grounds, you're going to have more caffeine, more of these compounds. So that can change things. How it's brewed. So are you making a French press, pour over, auto drip? Like there's so many different ways to brew coffee. Are you doing a non-brew method and you're making a cold brew? Again, so many different ways to make your coffee. And of course, at the end of the day, what you're adding to it matters a lot. So whether you're adding a ton of sugar or cream or whatever it is, that will play a factor into how it affects your overall health and well-being. Some other coffee considerations, and this is one of my favorite, like, I don't know if I can call it a fun fact because I don't know how fun it is, but just something to consider if you are somebody who's watching their cholesterol. So, unfiltered coffee, which a lot of the coffee we drink is unfiltered unless you are putting that paper filter into your coffee pot. A lot of coffee we're drinking is unfiltered. There have been studies that show unfiltered coffee can impact LDL cholesterol levels, especially in more susceptible people. The reason for this is that certain compounds in coffee, which can still be health promoting, they really reduce the clearance of LDL cholesterol in our liver, which is where it's produced and cleared out from the body. Now, it will raise your cholesterol, some people, and it can be, 10 points. Like it's not an insignificant amount of, a rise in LDL. It's not sure if that rise is still, correlated to health concerns, but if you're somebody who's like trying to watch their cholesterol and you're kind of a few points shy of being what's considered normal, considering how you're brewing your coffee may have an impact. And I will say, I did have a student who was predominantly using fresh French press coffee, which is unfiltered. She started to filter her coffee, which you can filter any type of coffee you make. You just use a paper filter. She started filtering her coffee, didn't change anything else in her diet or lifestyle, and her cholesterol came down 9 points. So I thought that was pretty phenomenal over the course of our semester. So just something to think about if you really struggle with, reducing your cholesterol and you are an avid coffee drinker. So ask yourself if your coffee's filtered. Another thing that I'm not going to dive into deeply, but if you are on certain medications and you drink a lot of coffee, especially first thing in the morning on an empty stomach when you're taking medications, you really want to talk with your doctor, our pharmacists here at Giant and Martin's, to see if coffee has any impact on your medications, because there are a good number out there. Whether it's the coffee itself or typically the caffeine that's in there. So it could be other caffeinated beverages too. But cold and allergy medications, which a lot of people are taking right now, depression and other those types of medications, high blood pressure, thyroid medications, especially that you should be taking on an empty stomach, osteoporosis medications, and then iron and calcium supplements. Truly, a lot of these are inhibited by coffee and caffeine. So again, reading the package of your medications, having conversations with your healthcare providers, especially if you're someone who's an avid coffee drinker, to just make sure that your coffee intake is not inhibiting your medications one way or another, because for some it can raise how much you are absorbing, and in a lot of cases it reduces how much you absorb. So just a conversation to have too if you're a coffee drinker. Here at the Giant Company, we have so many coffee products, of course, from ground to whole bean to, I like this half calf one. So it literally has half, I think it's 65 milligrams of caffeine, which you can make your own half calf if you have a decaf and a regular. We have instant coffees, we have cold brew in our refrigerated section. So lots of places to purchase coffee products. Each of these are links if you want to learn more about individual products. But we're going to dive in because we're making two recipes today. I thought it'd be fun to eat and drink coffee because I don't seem energized enough, apparently. We're going to do both. So we are going, this is a brand new recipe on savory. So it's a tiramisu chia pudding. It's a February, January recipe. So we're going to make this, and I'm going to make a proffee, which is a protein coffee, which has been all the rage recently. So for this, I'm going to keep the slide up for a moment, but we're just going to dive into it because it is a very simple recipe to make. And I did make a batch so you can see what it looks like when it's finished because you do want to let it sit overnight. The pudding, very simple. If you've never tried a chia pudding, this is a really good ratio to try liquid to chia. We're going to use a cup of chia seeds, and this makes 4 servings, I should mention. 4 servings, if you're looking to have it as a snack, I would say it makes 2 servings if you want it as part of like a breakfast, because it's only 180 calories, which is on the low side of calories for a meal. It's more a snack serving. So totally, I've kind of played with the serving sizes, and if you're looking for a snack or a meal, you can really adjust it. But we're going to do half a cup of chia seeds. To that, we need to add fluid because to make a pudding, the chia seeds, they're packed with fiber, a soluble fiber that when it's exposed to liquid like water or coffee, they expand, and that's what makes the jelly-like consistency. I'm going to use our cold brew coffee, which is super simple, but of course you can make your own coffee and let it cool down. Some type of sweetener, which you could leave out, but I do think it'll be a little bitter without any sweetener. So a sweetener of choice, some vanilla extract, and then the topping. So to make it look like that tiramisu, which if you've never had tiramisu, it's an Italian dessert that typically has ladyfingers, which are a type of pastry that are soaked in coffee or espresso. And then you whip up this like mascarpone type not filling because it's on the top, but mascarpone is a type of like sweeter cream cheese-like consistency, which you could do here, but we're going to do a non-fat Greek yogurt. We're going to add some protein and probiotics by making that swap. It calls for vanilla, which my store did not have any vanilla Greek at the time, which I typically don't buy anyway. I'm going to show you what I do instead. And then a little bit of cocoa powder to dust, which you also do on a tiramisu. When I saw this picture, I'm like, I have to try this. It looks so good. Then for our protein coffee or proffee, you can do a cup of coffee, iced, cold brew, hot. And the difference here, so cold brew is going to be like this, or I'll show you. I typically make my own cold brew. I'm gonna drop it in a like big mason jar like this. I bought the kind of apparatus a long time ago online. But what you do is you'll just put coffee grounds and let it sit in the cold water. There's different amounts of time depending on how strong you want it to be. I typically do overnight or at least like 24 hours because I like it really strong to make like a concentrate. So cold brew is just that. You brew it in cold water. Iced coffee, you make a hot coffee, you let it cool down, and you add ice. So that's the main difference. But what we're going to do is have some of the cold brew. And then to make it a protein-rich coffee, we're going to add something that has protein, whether it's a higher protein milk like dairy, soy, pea, or ultra-filtered milks. You could do a protein shake, or you could do a protein powder added to milk or water. And I'll kind of talk about these as we get into them. And of course, as always, I include the links to Giant and Martin's for our recipes, and it's in the email. But I did kind of want to showcase because throughout the month of January, we're talking a lot about protein and fiber because, a lot of people are doing resolutions and whatnot, and that's fine, whatever you want to do. But truly, a lot of us would be better off if we balanced our meals around protein and fiber, both, not just one or the other. What I love about chia pudding in particular is that it has fiber and it has protein, and you really can bump up the protein more depending on what you're adding to it. But this is going to keep you full, and this is a snack size. If you were to double this recipe and make it like a meal size, that'd be a lot of fiber for some of us. So make sure you're drinking plenty of water or coffee with your chia pudding. Basically, we whisk everything together. Then you want to let it sit overnight in the fridge so it can thicken up. And then you're going to divide it, put that yogurt and the cocoa powder and the coffee we're just going to mix together. Tons of other ways to use coffee, whether it's, as a beverage, in cocktails and mocktails. Espresso martinis have become so popular again. In baked goods, I love using coffee in especially baked goods that have chocolate. So things like chocolate muffins or brownies, that chocolate and coffee really kind of bring out each other's flavors. In smoothies, we have a smoothie recipe I think I have shared on the next slide, the chia pudding we're making today. In rubs and marinades, if you've never had red eye gravy, which is drippings with espresso, it's very good. Not nutritious, but it is good. And then there's lots of home remedy things that you can use with the grounds, whether it be in your compost as a fertilizer, as pest control, deodorizers, cleaning and beauty products, like a body scrub, natural dyes. So lots of ways to use those grounds. Of course, I probably wouldn't do some of these with like flavored coffees, but I digress. Some recipes we have on our savory. So this is the smoothie that I have made before. It's quite good. The Profi. So this is just an example of how to use a cold brew and just a pre-made protein shake. And then I've made this one before too. This is a spiced overnight cold brew coffee. So basically you put, like I did, the coffee grounds in the whatever you're making your cold brew in, and you add different spices like cinnamon and turmeric, which flavor the coffee, but also give you those health benefits of those spices too. All right, I'll go back to that slide in a moment, but I want to start making our recipes. Let me turn on my other camera. Okay, perfect. Let's see. All right. So hopefully you can see both screens. We are going to get started with our chia pudding first. So into a bowl, so I just have a bowl here. Move all my coffee out of the way. We are going to add a half a cup of chia seeds. We sell two main types of chia seeds. We have other brands, but our brands, we have just regular chia seeds. This is a really nice kind of big bag of chia seeds, which I'm going to use. But we do also have, which I love, these are our chia seeds with probiotics. We're adding some probiotics with the yogurt, but you could really double down and add even more with this one as well. They're both typically found in the natural organic section of our stores. So here we are going to do, I'm just going to pull up my recipe so I don't totally forget, but I'm pretty sure I said a half a cup of our chia seeds. If you've never made chia pudding before, these are the same seeds. So let me see. Hope it focuses. The same seeds that, your chia pet of the 80s, 90s, whatever year they started, probably before that. Same thing, but chia seeds have been consumed for centuries, probably longer than that, especially in South America. They're really thought to provide a lot of energy and just be really satiating, again, because of that fiber that's in there. So, but with all that fiber, again, I can't stress enough, you got to drink water with your fiber. So half a cup in here in our bowl. Then we are going to add our fluid. So it calls for a cup of milk and a cup of the cold brew. So here is our cold brew. And again, this makes 4 servings. You can make one at a time. You can make it's a very easy recipe to double. So 1 cup of the cold brew. And I'm just going to it calls for any type of milk. So regular or plant-based milks will both work. I'm just doing our lactose-free. So a cup of that. And that's the typical ratio you'll see. Half a cup of chia seeds to like 2 cups of some liquid. You can make fruit-based. You can really make whatever you want. But that is what we have for our liquid and our chia seeds. Then it calls for, I'm not going to measure this, it calls for a teaspoon of vanilla extract. A little bit more. I love vanilla extract. And 2 tablespoons, this one I will measure, 2 tablespoons of some type of sweetener. So again, you could do a non-caloric sweetener. You could do honey, it calls for. I think maple syrup, I just really like the consistency and how it tastes. So That's my preferred, but 2 tablespoons for 4 servings, not too bad. Okay. So excited. Farm shows this week, and if you didn't know, or I guess next week, uh, we produce a lot of maple syrup in Pennsylvania, so I always buy a little bit at the show. That one I bought here, or at Giant. So this one is our cinnamon and vanilla infused. So delicious, which I think would go great in this. I think that is everything. So we have our chia seeds, our milk, our cold brew, our honey or maple syrup, and our vanilla. We're going to take a whisk it all together. Now, this is something when I first make it, every minute or so, I give it a little bit of a stir because the chia seeds will kind of clump together, which is good. Like we want it to start thickening, but we don't want it to be clumpy. So I kind of stir it every once in a while. You're going to pop a lid on this. It's going to go in the fridge overnight. Really, at least 4 hours tends to be enough. But overnight works great too. So like if you like to meal prep, you can make this at night and have it ready in the morning. So we're going to put it aside for now. And I'm going to show you what it looks like already finished. So it gets really nice and thick. Kind of see my coloring is very weird right now. You can see here. Look at all those chia seeds all together. So what we are going to do, as it called for, I think it said how much yogurt? 1.5 cups of yogurt divided between the 4. So it's like 6 tablespoons for one. I'm going to eyeball it. But so I'm just using our Greek non-fat plain. And all I did, I added a little bit of either, you could do vanilla extract, you could do vanilla bean paste, whatever you have on hand to make it a vanilla yogurt. And it's going to be a lot lower in sugar too. So I already did that. Hand it back here. So I just kind of mixed in some of that vanilla. So we are going to, here's my pudding here. I'm going to put this on the top very gently. Oh, it smells so good. You can really smell the coffee on the in the pudding. I always say I'm excited for the recipes, but I'm very excited for this one. Okay, so we have the yogurt in there. You can kind of see. I'll switch to this one. It's not a super thick layer like in the photo. I might have to add more. But it looks good. Then on top, we are going to add just a little bit of the baking cocoa, the cocoa powder. So what I'm gonna do, I feel like I am gonna add just a touch more yogurt because I want to have that really nice little layer. Let's see. And of course, that's better. Okay. Not too much more, but enough. Okay. Beautiful. Then, and again, the Greek yogurt is adding some protein, some probiotics, so really nice. What we're gonna do, so you could just sprinkle it over. I just have a fine mesh strainer. I'm gonna put it right on top. I'm gonna have to hold it. And I'm just gonna sprinkle a little bit of cocoa powder right on top. And make a mess all of my counter. This looks so good. And it's not a ton of cocoa powder. It kind of just does enough to dust. But one fun fact about cocoa powder, for a tablespoon, you get 2 grams of fiber. This is going to be a very high fiber, high fiber breakfast. I mean, I don't know if you can see. I'll be sure to take a picture, but it smells so good. I am so excited to give that a try. I will take a photo before I do though. Beautiful. So that is our tiramisu chia pudding. So it has that coffee, it has that cold brew. We are going to make a protein coffee to go alongside it because we are talking about coffee today. So I just have a big mason jar with some ice. I actually think I'm gonna pour a little bit of ice out. So I just have some ice here. I'm gonna pour about a cup, give or take, of cold brew right into there. And then I'm going to make a protein foam, like a cold foam, to go on top of it. Now, you do not need to add protein to every single thing you're making, but if one of your goals in 2026 is to eat more protein with your meals and whatever you're eating doesn't have a good amount of protein, certainly this can be a way to do it. So into my giant brand blender ball. I am going to add in, this is our Nature's Promise grass-fed vanilla whey, which I really like. I did about a scoop, maybe a little bit less. Then I'm going to add milk. You could add water. Adding milk will just add a little bit more protein. So a little less than a cup there. Put the lid on. Now you could do a pre-made protein shake. You could do just milk. Milk has protein. This is going to add like another 20 grams though. And a shake. So the more you shake, or if you have a, what do they call it? They go, not a whisk, a frother, that would work too. But the more you shake, the more froth you're going to get. Then you can kind of see here, but I guess I'll do it on this one. I'm just going to pour that right in. I got a little bit in here. You can finish this off. But I love something about iced coffee when it kind of, when it does that, or this is cold brew, when it does that. So delicious. The protein powder has a little bit of sweetener. I think stevia and monk fruit maybe. So it's going to be a little sweet. You could add sweetener. I like cinnamon on top of mine. So good. It's not too sweet, which I think is perfect. We have enough sweet stuff going on in our lives. But so that is what I have today. Let me finish just showing you both of our coffee-inspired beverages and meals today. So our tiramisu chia pudding that has chia, which is going to be packed with fiber, and then our cold brew, which really is the shining star of our class today. This is our cold brew coffee that I used both in the chia pudding and in my latte, I guess to call it. But yeah, amazing. The chia pudding with a little bit of Greek yogurt and cocoa powder on top. I will, before we end, in my cold brew thing, again, I bought this a long time ago. It just has like a mesh strainer on the inside. I just put our coffee grounds. So this is just like our Colombian. You can do any of the grounds. I also had this one left over, which I think I'll do next time, the Smoky Symphony. That sounds really good too. Um, but like if you really, want to reduce your plastic waste or you just want to make your own flavors, this is a really easy way to do it. But I want to thank you so much for joining me today and learning all about coffee. Thanks. Take care.